It's that time, folks. Time to talk Sooners here at the Voice of College Football. Boomer Sooner is alive and well, despite what the recruiting efforts might show us otherwise. Remember what was going on this time last year? And yes, here's Jason with the horns down, always coming from him, not from me, coming from him. We've got a Texas channel, got to protect all interests. But catch Jason on College Football Hall of Fame podcast. That is the show to lock in on as well. College Football Hall of Fame podcast. Jason, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Just running some errands, getting some stuff done for the studio, but we're doing good. Everything's going well. Thanks for having me.
Just want to make sure that we're driving safely today. So there we go. Eyes on the road.
Always.
10-2. Okay, very good. Xavier Robinson is the guy that we want to talk about. That commitment just came in on Tuesday. The running back out of Oklahoma City at 6'2", 220. Your thoughts about that commitment?
You know, there's been a lot of people thinking a lot of really amazing things about this kid. He's 6'2", 220 plus pounds already. This is a kid who had over 2,500 yards a year ago with 39 touchdowns rushing. He was the bell cow type of running back. If you look at his film, it's Derrick Henry-like. I've heard people talk about Marcus Dupree, people like that, in concerns to what kind of player he's going to be. He's a 3-star, but I believe that's, we talked about a little bit last week that the rating system's great, but I think sometimes it takes a while before you kind of get on their radar. And with him, you've got, this is a state championship program there in Oklahoma. They look like they should probably win it here the next couple of years. Kevin Sperry will also be on this. This is where Kevin Sperry is transferring out of the Dallas area. He's already a commit to Oklahoma for the 25 class. Quarterback. So with a championship program, it's a good opportunity for him to win another one. I'm guessing that he's probably going to turn into a mid to high 4-star by the time this is all over with. He's just too talented to not.
Yeah, so the offer list for Xavier Robinson includes 15 schools: Oklahoma State, Colorado, Georgia Tech, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State. So the bulk of the Big 12. You've got Notre Dame, Vanderbilt there as well. So most of it's Power 5 out of those 15 offers.
Right. Yeah. And, I think the last few weeks, it's been pretty obvious that this is where he was going to end up. As I said, I think he got on Oklahoma's radar a bit late. That may have had something to do with the fact that Lincoln wasn't as big on, and I don't want to get back into the Lincoln Riley talk this week so much, but Lincoln wasn't as big on recruiting in state as you've seen Brent Venables make that a priority, for this program. And so you want to try to get the best players from around the state. And from the state, obviously they're still looking to get David Stone, who, although he's been at IMG Academy for the past couple of seasons, he's certainly an Oklahoma kid. So that's, but they're definitely making that a priority for the program to make sure that they're in on the best kids from the state. So that's part of it. But I do think that, again, he's kind of an underrated player. But when you look at 2,500, almost 2,600 yards, and to have 39 touchdowns anyway a year ago or just past season, and said he caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and threw a touchdown in the state championship game as well. So, he's some kind of player, man. He's just, I heard Jay Smith from Unfair Sports saying that he expects that he might be the kind of player that could be an all-time Oklahoma great, which if you think about that's saying something. There's a lot of really huge names that come to mind when you think about great Oklahoma running backs. If he lives up to that, that's saying something, particularly when he's a 3-star coming in,
Our buddy Fail BV thinks he's on the slower side and he's more of an H-back.
Yeah, Phil BV doesn't know anything about Oklahoma football, I don't think. So I think he knows enough to hate on it. So I'm guessing, again, I think we talked about that last week. I think he's a Texas guy. That's all right. But he's not, I mean, watch his film. I don't know how you can fake 2,594 yards, 39 touchdowns. So say what you want to say. This guy is, when you get those bell cow type backs, when you're that big, I guess maybe it looks a little slower, but we're going to see.
So, Jason, we're sitting on the 41st rated class right now. Doesn't matter. It's June. 9 hard commits, though. Most teams are in the 15 range, something close to that right now. I know there's concerns out there among Oklahoma fans, of course, but do you have any concerns?
Not really. I think that when you look at the guys that they're in on, none of them are committed yet. Aside from Xavier Sims, really, the guys that you're looking for, you've either gotten them or they're not committed to anyone yet. And the major players in the I mean, you're looking at Tatum, the number one running back in the country, is been crystal ball to go to Oklahoma. And DeMarco Murray, talk about an amazing recruiter on the staff. This guy, he's hitting the recruiting trail like the way that he used to hit the whole plan for OU. So I'm really not concerned. And when you start looking at Todd Bates, I know he's taken a lot of heat from a lot of fans, and we even kind of had this conversation last night on my live stream, and you get used to the way things were. When you start thinking about some of the offensive players seem to go a little earlier in the process than some of the defensive guys, particularly the defensive line, which is where their biggest effort is headed right now. If you're Oklahoma, that's definitely the place that they know that they have to shore that up. Something that, you're still in on Williams Nwaneri, who's the number one defensive tackle in the country. You're still in on David Stone, who I still believe is almost certainly a Sooner. He is finishing up on his official visits here over the next month or so, I believe. As we saw, he was at the Champ U. He ended up back there with one of his friends a week later on in the week. He's spending a lot of time there around the Oklahoma facility. He's the number 2 rated defensive tackle in the country. They're both top 10 players. They both have crystal balls to Oklahoma. If you get both of those guys, you're almost certainly going to get a third. We've heard that Dominic McKinley is very much in play. I think he's also very much in play for Texas. Something happened with that staff there at LSU, it seems like, that may have gotten them in a little hot water with Dominic McKinley's family. I don't know exactly what it was. It's just rumors that you hear going around, but apparently he and his family really enjoyed the Champ U barbecue. But I think they're also, as I said, they're very much in play for Texas as well. But that's another top 15 in the country recruit at the defensive tackle position. Then you throw in Nigel Smith, who's, one of the top defensive tackles. I think that he's a 5-star caliber type of player. If you watch him, he plays multiple sports. I mean, this is a kid that explosive, even playing basketball. So I feel like if you get those two, then you're probably going to get the domino of at least a third one. But I said on my show last night, any one of these guys that they have Oklahoma in their top 3 from that defensive tackle position are foundational type of players for a championship level defense, a national championship level, and even any one of them. So if you can pick up 2 of these guys and possibly even 3, what could that mean for the future of this Oklahoma defense? And I don't think that it could be understated of just how important that will really be.
I am sifting through all the comments that came into the channel over the last week or so, not really finding anything that is going to spin off into a topic or anything we need to address. Leave your comments and questions there in the chat, folks. And we will certainly go from there.
Yeah.
And so as we do expect more traffic and expect more commits to be flying in here once we get near the end of the summer, do you have any positions beyond the individual players? Do you think there's a focus on either side of the ball in terms of particular positions that need beefed up?
I think that as we talked about, that defensive tackle position has been the real, all along the defensive line has been their main effort, I believe, coming into this. And they still have some work to do with the defensive tackle position. I think that there's some places that they're going to shore up as far as the edge position. But when you got in PJ Adebawari this past season, who was a top 5 also prospect, Peyton Bowen, who another 5-star safety. We've seen Reggie Pearson has been on our friend Jay from Unfair Sports' show this past week. He believes that this defense is a top 5 defense already, and he played for Wisconsin when they were a number 2 defense in the country, and he believes he wholeheartedly he kind of came across as a little salty that everybody was expecting them to be even top 50. He was like, he dismissed that summarily. It was like, no way. Even top 10, he didn't really want to hear. So it's look, I think that they've definitely addressed the things that they need to address. Do they need to get them in on paper? Sure. But I think that obviously that doesn't come for another 6 months until that's even gonna happen. So I think that the main thing that your hope would be that Reggie's right, that they're very good on defense. With this schedule the way that it is, I think that that's how you're probably going to shore up some of these guys. I believe you're going to get commitments from, as we talked about, the running back Tatum. Their running back room might be the deepest in the country. It's definitely up there with somebody like Georgia and Alabama. When you start looking at the guys that they've brought in just the past couple of years, Gavin Sawchuk and really kind of coming through in that Cheez-It Bowl. And then Javante Barnes, he missed a lot of the spring with an injury, but he looked really good as a freshman as well. I think that those two are good, but you also had Hollywood Smothers from North Carolina that's expected to be a big contributor. Ken Durham as well, who's going to be coming in from he's another Texas running back kid. These guys look like they're ready to go right away. You still have guys. And last night, I had my stream. They were saying you're forgetting about Marcus Majors and Tawi. What's his last name? Anyway, he was like, you're forgetting about those guys. I'm really not. It's just that there's so many of them. And now you look at Xavier Robinson going to be coming in, and the possibility of the number 1 running back in the country. Really, DeMarco Murray is doing a heck of a job on the recruiting trail. And it's just, I think that, as I said, I feel like if they just do something similar offensively to a year ago, obviously the hope is that you don't see Dylan Gabriel get hurt. But if you did, you've got the Elite 11 winner and Gatorade Player of the Year for high school a year ago in Jackson Arnold. They've got a really good opportunity to win 10 to 11 games maybe and have a chance to win this Big 12 on their way out of it, possibly get I hate to even say that word, but that playoff bid, you have to be hoping for it when you're looking at this schedule the way that it is. You don't have to take on the defending champions in Kansas State unless they play you in the championship game. I think the other dark horse team that you would expect to vie for it, aside from Texas, I think that we've talked about this, there's no reason why Texas shouldn't get there either. If anybody has a better roster, it would be the Longhorns. Um, again, that's going to be up to Sark. We'll see what happens there and how he handles things. But to me, I think the other dark horse team will be Texas Tech. I think that their quarterback room is filling up, and that's something that we've kind of talked about. They had a kid that's a 3-star that impressed everyone at the Elite 11 this last week. I think that the Red Raiders under Joey McGuire are dangerous for the rest of that league. They might be a year away, but I wouldn't be that. I mean, this is a school that beat both Texas and OU last year, so they're definitely right up there. Oklahoma doesn't play them in the regular season either. I think that whether you see them and then even Baylor, kind of same thing, you would have to see them in the conference championship game. Kansas State has had Oklahoma's number for the last 4 years. They've won 3 of the last 4 games. It's one of those ones that we weren't that. I know as a fan myself, I was okay with them not having to play them. They always seem to find a way to just make it hard on OU. Championship setting, you definitely want to play the best team in the league if you can. I think it very well could be Kansas State, but for Oklahoma, that should be your goal, is to win this conference.
Yeah, I've been mapping out predictions the last few days, and I got to tell you, because it's my nature to wait until the night before the season starts to unveil my predictions. I like to do it last minute, I like to see everything, think about everything, but that's not good for business. You got to throw them out there early so people can consume them all summer. So I'm trying to push myself to make predictions early, and it's tough to find losses on Oklahoma's schedule. I got to say, even though the Sooners were down last year, if you really look at how they played last year and a second year, usually good coaches go to Pete Carroll, go to Nick Saban, go to Dabo Swinney, go to all those guys, Kirby Smart, and look at their second year after their first year, and you see a jump in regards to having a full year to get their system in play, build relationships, terminology, all that stuff, where this stuff's second nature, and they're not just teaching on the fly and trying to get ready for a football season, but it becomes, culture there. And so Brent Venables might be, a little bit more prepared for, what he's going to face this year, of course.
Yeah, I think so. And I know where you're headed with it. I think that's something that the coach always talks about on my show, is that it's a learning curve to become a head coach. It doesn't matter how long you've been a football coach. And I know that, Venables has been a defensive coordinator for the better part of 30 years. So I understand that there is a learning curve. And I think that the biggest learning curve, though, was coming in it was such a mess you had to clean up from Lincoln Riley. It just was. And there's just no other way to talk about it. And they've turned over 85% of this roster. They're the type of players that you want to see Coach Venables have. I think that at any point in any program, and we've talked about it with USC, you have to have your own guys, to do the things that you're trying to do. But the one thing that we know is that the 3-3-5 that they love to run it's nowhere in the same stratosphere as what the speed of Lincoln Riley and his defensive coordinator is. It's just a different system. And there were times that it had everything to do with missing assignments and not as much to do with, not being there. It's a missed assignment, missed gap. There's a lot of things that were happening that cost them games. And we're talking about five losses by one score, 4 of which were by 3 points. So, I don't know. I think I even remember on your show hearing from, I don't remember who it was that was on this show, though, that was talking about mathematically, I don't even know that you could do that again. Have 5 losses like that all kind of come within that 3 points. As I said, when you kind of look at this schedule for the regular season, in view of the fact that the Georgia game was canceled because of, going into to the SEC that year early, they wouldn't have been able to finish up that series, so they canceled it. It really softened up the schedule. Then on top of that, you're looking at, you play 3 of the 4 teams, but one of them at home. You end up with BYU on the road. I think that's one of the tougher games. Cincinnati, I'm not sure that I believe in Scott Satterfield for that position. I mean, I think he's a decent coach, but I'm not exactly sure what made them hire him at Cincinnati to replace Coach Fickell.
I agree.
You know, I also think that, yeah, again, you've got 3 games that you don't play from a year ago that were losses. So if you look at that schedule, you can maybe find 4 teams that might beat you. I don't think all 4 of them will. You know, my expectation would be to beat, you know, and obviously Texas would be the team that's the best chance of beating Oklahoma. Again, I think they have the best roster in the Big 12. But aside from them, then what? Maybe Kansas is dangerous. I think defensively they're going to struggle, but with Jalen Daniels, and that's a road game, so that would be a danger game. But usually Texas is the ones that has a hard time with Kansas, so I don't know. No, they didn't a year ago, but Oklahoma State, I guess you could say they're a threat. Oklahoma fans don't consider them a threat, and they lost a lot of guys from that program a year ago. I know you have on your show sometimes that he would tell you differently, that they've reloaded with just all the talent that they need in the world, maybe aside from quarterback. I have a hard time.
Well, you know better than me. He says they're going to shock the nation this year.
That's exactly what he says. I think he's a little out there with that prediction. But listen, I will say this: he is a studier of film. He believes in this new defensive coordinator that they brought in, who's done a very good job recruiting. I'll give him that. They've done a very good job at that. But that would be, I mean, the last Bedlam. There's no way Oklahoma allows himself to lose that game. I just don't see it. There's just no way. So, again, are they a threat? Of course, but there's not a lot of them other than that. BYU would be the other. UCF maybe coming into Norman. They've been a little vocal this last week, though. They're not fans of Dylan Gabriel after his decision to go to Oklahoma and follow Coach Levy. Apparently, that's a sore spot in their mind. They've made it vocal, and they've put it out there. They actually did that on Cody's show on Locked On Oklahoma State, and then I subsequently did a video about that. They're talking a lot. So if they weren't on OU's radar before, they certainly will be now. I don't know that was probably the best decision on the part of people around UCF, but, you know, it seems like they would have probably been better off to fly under the radar there and pull an upset without OU really thinking about you maybe a little bit. But that's not the case. Again, that would be another team that you kind of consider. Look, I've got all the respect in the world for Gus Malzahn, and that's a up and coming program. They've got a huge fan base. They've got a huge alumni base, and I could definitely see them being. I kind of feel like this first year in the Big 12 for all of those teams is going to be a filling out year. And we talked about Houston. I think that they have the wrong coach, but it's just me.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
I am fascinated to see how these 4 newcomers step in, because it's just a different level of football. Not that they don't see it at times during the season, but they're going to see it every week. Right. And, you know, you take a team like BYU, and I have always, in evaluating everybody's schedules every off season, looked at theirs completely different than everybody else's. They have always had the weirdest, most bizarre schedule, because basically you can just tell they load up in September and they play a murderer's row in September, because that's where everybody's playing non-conference games and they can actually schedule. But then when everybody goes into their conferences, they have trouble finding games. So they've played, you know, they can play a top 10 team one week and play Wagner the next week. So they've had a really weird schedule.
Yeah.
BYU, but that's changed. Their world has changed more than anybody's. And, they've lived in the 8-4 range in the last 10 or 15 years under Kalani Sitake. Is where they've lived. They had the break during the COVID year, and they scheduled a bunch of bizarre games and went 11-1. But that was a soft schedule. But they've lived in 8-4 range, and we know UCF and Cincinnati and really Houston. If you go back 10 years to Tom Herman, and when they beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl, those have been the last 3 group of 5s that have elevated, done the Boise State, and been able to elevate and play with the big boys for a year or 2, but they haven't been able to sustain it. So I'm fascinated to see which one of those, because I could point to, and I think we had this conversation when you were first on, they all have a reason, at least in my thinking, to say that's why they could be the one. That's why UCF could be the one. They've got the biggest alumni base. They play in Orlando. NIL could be huge. They've got a head coach who's won on the big stage before. They have that Florida recruiting base, and we can go to each one and kind of figure it out. I guess Cincinnati, with losing Luke Fickell, to me, might be the one that might be a rough go for them in the future. But Texas Tech's intriguing. I really like Joey McGuire. They've got Tyler Shook in play, and they've got an upset possibility that they could pull on Oregon early in the season and really shake some people up. And I don't think that's too far-fetched that could possibly happen.
I don't think so either. I think that that's a game that a lot of people in this area have circled on their calendar. It's if you pull an upset there, you're going to see that what kind of momentum could that give Texas Tech. If you don't win it, I think it's one of those things that nobody really expected you to necessarily. But I can definitely see it happening. And with Tyler Shook, as you said, they're doing things a little differently. I mean, Oklahoma went in and put up 50 and lost. So it's. I think that Coach McGuire, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on the show the last week or two, is just the level of respect that he's getting from the coaches community in high school coaching in Texas, which is so important, and you tend to wonder if a coach like Sark doesn't end up keeping his job, can Tech hold on to this guy? Because, if you're out recruiting him, and when you start talking about Micah Hudson, I think that everybody in Austin believed that was a lock, for him to be going to Texas. Now, his dad did go to Texas Tech. Legacy players, you expect them to go to Texas if their dad went to Texas. You expect them to go to Oklahoma if their dad went to Oklahoma. If their dad went to Texas Tech and Oklahoma and Texas want you, you kind of expect them to go to Oklahoma or Texas. So that tells you that he's recruiting above his pay grade, or above his weight class, if you want to put it that way. This is a guy there's a reason for it. And I think that obviously his mentor, he says it a lot, was Matt Rule. And Matt's obviously at Nebraska, but that year you hear a lot of people asking is when they won the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago and won the conference championship, was it more about him being the assistant head coach than it was about Dave Aranda being the head coach? Because as we talked about the last couple of nights, Dave, he's a little different of a guy. Dave's a little different guy. So and I'm not sure that he connects with some of these players the way that you're seeing Joey do it at Tech. Now, of course, they beat Tech a year ago, so I'm not bad-mouthing Dave Aranda. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a little different, though, he's going to throw out some obscure quote from an obscure book that most of these kids don't know anything about. Whereas I just feel like Joey connects with them a little differently. And again, he's very well respected around the entire state, having won multiple state championships, kind of in that same vein as guys like Art Briles. And there's been a few other ones around that have done that have kind of come up through those coaching ranks and the high school ranks there and made good at the next level. So I don't know, man. I that's my question is, can they hold on to him? But I think that they're in play. I think that they're one of those teams that, and Texas has to deal with them. So now they are going to be in Austin, but I could see, Texas and both Texas Tech and K-State will be going to Austin. So they're going to get the brunt of that. We're going to find out what Texas is really about when it comes to those two contenders coming in there. They need to hold serve, and if they're, because I still feel like I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think anybody would if they don't win 10 games or at least play for the conference championship if they didn't show Sark the door.
Folks, we got Jason here every Wednesday here on OU Sooners Live. We appreciate Jason. Catch his show on College Football Podcast right here on YouTube. College Football Hall of Fame Podcast. College Football Hall of Fame Podcast. That's your destination here on YouTube. So check out Jason's work there. So we got Jason here on Wednesday. We appreciate him keeping our show going. Jason Ray has a ton of work obligations, and he is looking to start posting a show here every Friday because that's when his free day is. And so be looking out for that. So Jason is going to head your way starting this Friday at 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Sooner Tailgate premieres this Friday at 4 Eastern, 3 Central with Jason Ray. And Jason's going to host again for the third consecutive year our post-game shows here at the Voice of College Football, OU. We had a question come in from our guy, Jimmy Satterfield, Jason. He wants to know what wide receiver is going to step up.
That's a good question. I think that's the question that we all kind of have too right now. And I saw somebody in there talking about Gibson. This is another guy that's a 6'6" player. I can see him. It seems like he just needs to have something good happen for his confidence, and you could see him doing that. The consensus is that you expect Jalil Farouk to kind of step forward and take over that number one receiver position. Yeah, as you've got up there on the screen, 5 TDs a year ago, almost 500 yards. He hasn't proven that he's the number one yet, but I think that when you look at everything, all things equal, he's flashed signs of being very, very good, and now you would expect that possibly he steps up. Andrell Anthony, you've got him as a transfer in from Michigan. It's the guy that can take the top off. A lot of speed there. So that's another. There's a lot of guys there that have talent, and that you look at in a situation where, this guy could be very, very good. Have they proven it yet? We'll see. A lot of people talk about Coach Stoops' son, Drake. He's more of that. To me, he's a slot receiver, possession guy, tough. He's definitely a guy that you want out there on the field, because he's going to give you a lot of those little things that you want to get, first down catches. He's going to get tough yards. But in the end, I feel like, when you're talking about that take the top off guy, you're hoping to see Jalil kind of break through and really take over that position as the number one receiver. Again, Jaden Gibson, I think that you would hope the same for him as well, because you just look at him, and I mean, when you're 6'6" and you've got some speed like he has, the intangibles are there. It's just time for him to kind of step up and do it. I believe that some of the things that have happened, now I would say you've got a freshman coming in as well that is very much in play. Farouk is another one that needs to work on his hands. Listen, they had a lot of drops last year. I think Jimmy's right on that. There was a lot of drops last year. It seemed a lot of it had to do with some timing things. There was also the fact that you had a coaching change at the receiver position. I don't really want to blame that on coaches. When the ball hits your hands, you need to catch it. And I think that's Jaden Gibson's biggest problem. Farouk also had a couple of drops, but really, I think that probably the biggest dropper of last season was the best receiver in Marvin Mims. He had more drops than the rest of them, and a lot of touchdown drops. So I also, again, I feel like if anything, it's you talk about the defense and how much it changed from the year prior, but people don't realize that there is a big difference between the offense that Jeff Lebby runs and the Lincoln Riley air raid offense that the Mike Leach offense. There's a lot of differences there in terminology, the routes that they run, the even just the RPO. You don't see a ton of that in the Lincoln Riley offense. So there's a lot of differences, and I think that the timing at times was a little off, right? Also, another thing that I think that people don't really think a lot about, but the ball spins different from a lefty than it does from a guy like Caleb Williams. Maybe that had something to do with it as well. No matter what, if it hits your hands, you're expected to catch it. But I agree with what Jimmy's saying, that you want to see them stop having those drops. I think if you do, there's at least you probably win 2 or 3 more games. There was a couple of those. Again, we talked about five of them, 4 of them by 3 points. I can think of at least 3 or 4 touchdown passes that were dropped, and they were TDs, no doubt. So they probably win at least a few more games there that way. But I'm with you. I think that's the only real question offensively or the biggest question I should say, is that you just don't have a lot of proven talent. And it's time for them to kind of step up and prove it. But, when you've got guys coming in that, even from the freshman class and you've got some transfer portal guys that have really, they've put their focus on, I really feel like I don't really get that worried about it, particularly when you've got a running back room like that. I think that they're going to lean on that running back room anyway. And rightfully so, because it's that good. But I feel like you're going to see somebody step up. I'm not going to tell you who I think it is because I don't really know. I feel like it should be Jalil Farouk, but I could see Jaden Gibson having a big season.
So, Jason, when you mention new guys coming to the team, let's broaden out to the entire team. And whether it's true freshmen or transfer portal guys, who are you excited to see on the field in Crimson and Cream? And who do you think is going to make a big impact as a newcomer?
Well, my favorite would be Dasan McCullough, probably, as far as the newcomers are concerned. Is the transfers. Dasan McCullough, he was a freshman All-American a year ago at Indiana. As we saw in the spring game, he was all over the field from the very first play. They were going for a double pass, go for the jugular play, and he broke it up. The defensive side, I think that everybody wants to see the defense do so much better. Peyton Bowen, I think that if he gets an opportunity to start, you may not see him come off the field again. I think that he's just that good. I also think guys like Makari Vickers and Samuel Omosiho, these are young newcomer kids that you expect big things from. I saw Makari Vickers at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio shut down an entire side of the field. They did not even think of going his way from the other side. So I think that those are guys that are probably going to get some time in there. Again, you've got Jaron Kanak, which is a recruit from a couple of years ago. He played some last year, but you're expecting that he's going to have a bigger part in this defense in that linebacker position as well. I think that that's a guy that Oklahoma fans have been excited about since they recruited him, and I do think that he's going to be. I think that he's going to have a big part in that. But defensively, I think that you can go from the line all the way back to the secondary and see guys like, Reggie Pearson's a newcomer. He's an upperclassman, having played at Wisconsin and then last year at Texas Tech. But as an Oklahoma fan, you can remember the hits that he put on, well, particularly Dylan Gabriel in that game. He threw a shot onto Dylan, and this guy is a big hitter. And again, he was pretty salty talking on Jay's show the other night about they're going to be a top 5 defense in his mind. So you love hearing that kind of stuff if you're an OU. To me, as much as I love offense and what I think that they're going to do, and there's some amazing talent coming in from that side of it too. I think Gavin Sawchuk, we saw him in one game really, and it was the ball game. That's another one of those.
I believe Jason is frozen up on us. Hopefully he sees that here in the next few seconds and probably can pop back on as we were reviewing guys that are going to make an impact as newcomers. And I see a number of your comments there in the chat. Perfect Cracker likes Reggie Pearson. Yeah, he did a tremendous job, obviously, at Texas Tech. We had his stats up there with 55 tackles. And yes, the defensive improvement, boy, when you hear top 5 or 10 defense in the nation, shoot, if they turn out to have a top 75 defense in the nation at this point, because I don't remember exactly what the numbers were. I know that they were 82nd in yards per play against. So that's obviously an issue that needs to be cleaned up and will be addressed. And you got to think with Brent Venables in a second go around. Jason, good to have you back. Wherever you want to pick us up on, you were talking about Gavin Sawchuk.
Gavin Sawchuk. I was about to say Jacquez Petaway is a freshman receiver that you could definitely see making an impact. He's one of those that 10-2, 10-3 speed in the 100. And the pictures that I saw of him during the track season, he's kind of built like a linebacker, but that's another one of those guys that speed-wise, he could take the top off and become a real big threat for this Oklahoma offense. Again, I still feel like if you're a Sooner fan, you really want to see just big improvement on the other side of the ball and all that stuff with Reggie Pearson and saying the things that he's saying. It makes you cautiously optimistic, I should say, about what they might be able to do on that side of the football, which I still feel like is the only thing they really have to do. If they can be similar to a year ago, which I think they should probably be better offensively than a year ago. But even if they're just similar and they can field a top 50 defense, I don't see how they don't win 10. I just don't. So excited to see what's going to happen. Hey, we're 60 days away from the college football season today. I mean, what a great, we're 2 months away, and it just seems like it's just going quick, and it couldn't go fast enough, though. I can't wait.
I am right there with you, Jason. I am right there with you. And we are doing our best here at the Voice of College Football, whether you're an Oklahoma fan or another fan. And please realize that we've got all sorts of other channels. So this isn't our only deal. So we're getting pulled back here and there and trying to cover everything as much as possible. So, for example, the last 2 days, I've released my Big Ten running backs and wide receiver rankings. And I'm going to start getting the schedule reviews with the predictions, and there are going to be team previews coming out here. And we're going to start doing position previews, both here for Oklahoma and everybody else, as we head toward August and try to get those position previews in before we hit August camp. But Big 12 Media Days has to only be about a month away. So once that hits and then that goes right into August camp, we're off and running, and there's no looking back.
Actually, I think Media Days is showing they may have it earlier than what they were saying. I thought it was going to be at the end of July. I'm thinking it may be July, like something at 11th or 12th. So I've actually got to get my stuff in for that. I'm excited about that Media Days as well. Last one for Oklahoma and Texas. Again, I think it's this last go around in the league. You kind of wish you were playing some of these teams. I think everybody's okay with not playing K-State, Oklahoma fan-wise. But I think you'd kind of like to play that Texas Tech game again. And I know that a lot of people are saying they'd love to play Baylor. But, it should be a lot of fun. I think the trip to BYU, I'm looking forward to that in particular. I think that's, if I see a loss aside from a possible loss to maybe Texas, it would be that game, just because of the fact that you expect it'll be at night. It's late in the season. They're they're going to be looking to, and Oklahoma's never beaten them, so it's they played them twice only, but it's I feel like that's going to be a tough one, and I think that, like you were saying earlier, that's the team that I feel like is probably the most intriguing coming in. I know that 8-4, it seems, but that 8-4, they're also playing a tough schedule. They're playing a lot of these. You look at last year, they played Arkansas, they played Notre Dame, they played Baylor. It was a pretty good schedule that they played. So as far as BYU's concerned, I just think that we're going to find out how good they are. Obviously they got a new quarterback coming in that didn't do a whole lot at Pitt last year, but I think that Kalani's a pretty good coach. I do, and I think that they're probably going to get some better players coming into the Big 12 than what they've been able to. I think that if anybody's going to, if out of those 4 schools that are coming in, I give them the best opportunity to probably be the best year one. After that, it probably is UCF, I would think. Maybe Houston if they get the right guy in there. But I feel like right now coming in, I think that probably BYU is probably ready on another level than some of the other ones.
And you're right, Jason. Big 12 Media Day is coming up July 12th and 13th. Man, they are right here, aren't they? They typically the conferences do them right before August camp and do them around the 25th, 26th. In that range, I know that the SEC has moved theirs up a little bit earlier in recent years, but there we go. We're only about 2 to 3 weeks away from Big 12 Media Days. Wow.
Yeah, it's it'll be a lot of fun, man. I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna hang out with some of the guys and and hear what they all have to say. I think it's obviously a good time of year. Everybody's going to be excited. Coach Gundy will probably be talking some smack about OU in Texas, so that ought to be fun. He's probably one of the few times you get an opportunity to ask him a question, so that ought to be fun. So anyway.
Well, Weston, as Jason mentioned, BYU has a new quarterback, but he's an old quarterback. Keaton Slovis, I'm not going to sell him as a great player, but he looked like he might be a great player when he first stepped on the field for USC, threw 30 touchdowns in relief of JT Daniels his first year at USC. But since he's been at Pitt, now he comes to BYU. Again, very experienced quarterback, not a great player, but a capable guy that knows what he's doing.
Athletically, he looks like, I think you're right. I think that, you look at him and you think he looks the part, and he's shown flashes. I know in talking with JJ Kitchen, is a friend of the show, comes on our show quite a bit. They were not overly impressed. I mean, they won 9 games still, but I think that, and I would say that coming off of having Kenny Pickett, Keaton Slovis wasn't exactly wasn't exactly the same guy. And,
nope.
And it's tough it's kind of the same way that a lot of people have. It's hard to compare Dylan Gabriel with Caleb Williams, even if he had a good season, it wasn't Caleb Williams. And so it was hard for Oklahoma fans to kind of digest that at times, I think. And even myself, I mean, they're not the same player, but I think there was a lot more wrong with that team than it was offensively. But when you just look back there and you don't see a Heisman caliber guy like you've been used to seeing as an Oklahoma fan, it's tough, And so Slovis, I think that maybe this is the place for him, though, And sometimes you just got to find your right place. So we'll see, we'll see what happens there. But again, I think are they going to be run heavy? Probably, but they're also going to be defensively sound, So this is a team and that's a tough place to go play at. I don't care who you are. I've been to that stadium before. I went and watched Texas play there one time and watched Taysom Hill take them apart. And, and this was a daytime game even. And it wasn't actually. It was in the evening, but that place is rowdy, rowdy. If you've been paying attention, and this is something I definitely want to ask Sonny and the guys from TCU is, you've had some people saying they don't want BYU fans allowed at Amon Carter Stadium. That's something that they've been talking about, and it's which is wild to me that you would say that, but that's where they are. They think that they're a little too rowdy for them, so that's pretty fun. I think it's going to be, obviously they didn't get that okayed, but it's pretty funny, man.
Catch Jason on a Hall of Fame College Football podcast right here on YouTube. Jason, set everybody up for what you've got going the rest of the week.
Yeah, listen, I think we're gonna have another couple of shows. We're gonna do some stuff. We're gonna kind of focusing in on Texas Tech a little bit and what they're gonna be doing around here. We're gonna have a show on that. Again, just keeping up with this recruiting. We're expecting some of these things to start dropping in that direction for Oklahoma. The Tatum deal with the running back, number one running back in the country, it almost looks like he's a lock to commit to OU anytime now. And, that's a fingers crossed kind of thing. What a huge deal that would be for OU, though, because this is a guy that everybody up until this point has expected that he was going to be a USC guy. And it looks like, he was talking the last couple of weeks that DeMarco and his dad are best friends, he says, and he talks to DeMarco Murray every day. So it almost appears like it's a guarantee that he's coming to OU. And it's, obviously, there's a long time left before the ink dries on the paper, but I would say that that's a big deal. I still feel like probably it's going to be closer to the end of July before you get these commitments from the defensive tackle guys who are the major targets for Oklahoma. I know that OU fans don't want to hear that, but that's probably the case. I would just tell everybody to remember that they're not committed anywhere yet. So as long as they're still, really, even when they commit, it doesn't matter. I think that it's gonna come down to when they sign. But again, I think that the fact that they're still in this late with these guys that are that highly ranked, even Dominic McKinley, it tells you that they're in a different place recruiting wise than they've probably been in quite a long time, quite a long time. So
appreciate everybody being here. And again, Jason makes this show go. So we appreciate Jason. Get on over to College Football Hall of Fame podcast. And Sooner Tailgate premieres Friday at 4 Eastern, 3 Central with Jason Ray. He's going to get you caught up on everything Oklahoma, dive into some other sports as well, but keep it football focused first and foremost. But Jason loves the softball and everything else going with Oklahoma athletics. Jason, have a great show tonight. We appreciate you being here, and we will hopefully get back together next week.
We'll do. Thanks a lot for having me again, Mark.
And everybody, keep in mind that we've got the most people here, about 65 or 70 at the end of the show. So catch what you missed. We went over recruiting, commitments, everything, positions of need, the whole deal. So catch what you missed. The video automatically posts, so it's available to you automatically. So watch what you missed and make it on back here next Wednesday. And again, catch Jason Ray's new show Friday at 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Jason, we appreciate it. We'll catch you soon, man.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good one.